So everybody on the team, with the exception of Rex, read House of Earth and Blood. Naomi read it, Wendy was reading it, literally everybody on the team read it. And we also all took part. So Tandem was a participant.
So I think we are going to move on to our game. So I'm very excited about this one. So this is the introduction.
Oh my goodness.
We will be playing today Game of Tropes.
Yes.
Yes. So because as we know, romance is not the only genre with tropes that we know and love. So why don't we start on the top left? So classic fantasy tropes, saving a sibling or best friend quest versus the main character becoming an unwilling symbol of rebellion. Which one do you guys prefer?
Katniss Everdeen.
Saving a sibling.
Oh, you see, I think symbol of rebellion. I'm a little bit over saving a sibling or a best friend. Like, let them save themselves.
What would be a good example of a fantasy book with the unwilling symbol of rebellion?
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games, but Hunger Games has got them both as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That is my go-to. For the saving a sibling one, my first thought, I think, was Ember in the Ashes by Sada Tahir.
Oh, yeah.
But there are many fantasy where you're... So I think, Zuzanna, you're the tiebreaker.
I think, oh God, because I like the saving of the sibling or best friend quest, because I really like when one of the most important relationships isn't just the romance. I do like that, but I also like the kind of symbol of rebellion. Oh God, this is difficult. But I think I'm gonna have to go, because I think Hunger Games, I loved Hunger Games, but I feel like there's been a lot of derivative stuff that kind of made me bored with that trope. So and whereas saving a sibling or best friend has so much more scope. So I think I'm gonna go with that. Sorry guys.
All right, so we've got 2 for saving a sibling or best friend. So they are going to move into the next round. And then assassin with a good heart / vengeful purpose, or a secret identity, power, or object only the main character can use. What do we think?
I like the assassin with a good heart.
I was gonna
I'm sensing maybe not.
I mean, they're both good, but I love the assassin. I love the morally gray character.
Yes,
He's willing to cross the lines that we don't want to cross, but for a good reason. And even willing to take on the bad reputation, or really get their hands dirty to save everybody else. It's amazing. I love that trope.
Awesome. What do you think, Zuzanna?
I'm unanimous on this one, because I agree completely. I think morally gray is one of the most interesting kind of character development arcs you can have. So and literally Julianna and I were talking about this, about Hellbent, which is a perfect example of the balanced morally gray kind of character. So 100% I'm gonna go with that.
Amazing. My go-to example, of course, is always Selena Sardothian.
Of course.
Yeah, but yeah, so I agree with you there. All right, so then we are going to move on to the right side of the bracket. And so what do we think? We've heard a lot about retellings today and our feelings on them, but between retellings or books based on Greek mythology or other mythology versus the evil overlord is really a misunderstood hero.
I'm back. It's that morally grey. Give me the evil overlord.
Interesting. I mean, Julianna, you really like the retellings. So what do you think?
I'm trying to decide. I think, man, so I'm not really into Greek retellings.
Sure.
So if it's like mythology stuff, I'm like, okay, give me the evil overlord. But if you're talking about like all kinds of retellings, I'm a little bit torn. But really, I love it when we have a misunderstood character, especially if someone has like gone to like assassinate him and then she ends up falling in love because he's really actually. Yeah. That's my favorite.
Classic. Well, before you decide,
evil overlord is literally like the top tier of the tropes. Love it. It's the winner. Just saying, calling it now.
Well, before you decide, Julianna, maybe Zuzanna can sway you.
Definitely evil overlord. Gotta go. I mean, you guys heard my feelings about retellings before. Evil overlord for sure.
Okay. All right. What do you think, Julianna?
Yeah, I'm sold. I've been converted.
Evil overlord wins. Yes, and we're happy about it. Okay. All right. Final one now. We've got a human with animal-like abilities, or the benevolent ruler who is really the source of all evil.
Okay, so I'm going to say that benevolent ruler is really the source of all evil is essentially just like real life propaganda. We're living that right now. So less interested in that. I think, and human with animal-like abilities just has so much like potential for world building because it's so broad. You could have all kinds of abilities. So, you know, humans with basically some kind of superpower, super hearing. Yeah. I think there's so much scope for being creative there. So I think that's going to be my vote.
Okay. All right. Jenny, what about you?
I see. So benevolent ruler, really source of all evil. Again, you're getting me there with the morally great. But I've got to say, human with animal-like abilities. I just have a soft spot in my heart for all of those shifters and like people like Fitz in the Farseer trilogy, Lysandra in Game of Thrones, in Throne of Glass.
Yes.
Those kind of shifters and people with like an animal companion, special place. So I'm going human with animal-like abilities.
Do you agree, Julianna, or are you more?
I agree. I think that I love a superpower or like a really an interesting superpower. So this goes right in with that.
Excellent. We are unanimous for human with animal-like abilities. All right. Okay, now it gets a little bit more difficult, friends. So we'll go back to the other side. And now we're between saving a sibling or best friend quest, or assassin with a good heart, vengeful purpose, reason for the bad things that they do. What do we think?
I think assassin all the way. Yeah, I think we love the morally gray. I think we're all there.
I'm seeing nods all around. So are we all happy with that? Okay. So sorry, sibling best friend, but we prefer the not so cold-hearted killer. And now, so do we like animal-like superpowers or the misunderstood evil overlord? I think I know where this is going.
I still stick with my first thing that like top tier is an evil overlord that's actually trying to do the right thing, and I can't give you an example because it's a major spoiler for the book, but I also really like humans with animal-like abilities, so I am literally like sat smack bang on the fence and I don't know.
Well, let's see if the others can help you out here.
Well, I want humans with animal-like abilities to be up there just because I feel like we have two sides of the same coin with this evil overlord and the assassin thing. I think the same thing appeals to us about both of those, of the morally gray character that's like doing terrible things for good reasons. And so I would love to see magic get up there because that's something I love about fantasy. So I'm voting for human with animal-like abilities.
Yes, I agree. I think evil overlord and assassin are very kind of in the similar area, so I agree 100%.
Although I would be curious to see if we did have the overlord there, which one would win. But I don't know, Jenny, what do you think?
I'm sold. I'm sold with the logic. Let's go human with animal abilities.
Excellent. Yes, because fantasy is all about logic. Okay.
It really is.
Yeah.
Consistency in the world building. That's what we love.
Yeah, true. Okay, we have our final round for the winner of the Game of Tropes. What do they say? Either you win or you die. Well, I mean, we'll still read you. We'll still read all of these tropes, but let us see. What do we think? Assassin or magical powers?
I'm going magic.
Whoa, Jenny with the magic. I think I'm going to go back to what Julianna was saying. You know, Brandon Sanderson saying you come for the world building and you stay for the characters. Like, to me, the psychology of a character is always going to be the most interesting part. So I'm going to have to go with assassin.
Julianna.
Yeah,
you.
I agree with Zuzanna, and I really do think it's the characters. And yeah, I think that's that one for me.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we love all of these tropes. However, in this game, we have a winner. We have assassin with a good heart or a vengeful purpose. And either way, very morally gray. We love them. So, yay! But we'll still read everybody else's. Thank you very much for playing Game of Tropes, and we'll see you next time. But also don't go, because this is not the end of our chat. Tell us in the comments if you agree with the end result of the Game of Tropes. Would you have made other choices? We would love to hear what your thoughts are on these tropes and this game. But we're going to finish up our fantasy chat with just a few more questions. Let's see. Jenny, let's start with you. And can you tell us what are some of your favorite fantasy campaigns that Tandem has done?
So I was thinking about this, and I have 3. I narrowed it down to 3. So the first one, shock to no one, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. So basically, I ran this campaign 3 times, and every time was amazing. So we did it as a Australia, New Zealand campaign, we did it as a UK campaign, and then we ran it again 6 months later, which was my favorite iteration, which was another UK campaign, but I got the whole team involved. So everybody on the team, with the exception of Rex, read House of Earth and Blood. Naomi read it, Wendy was reading it, literally everybody on the team read it, and we also all took part. So Tandem was a participant. So every day we had someone different jumping on stories and answering the day's questions. Everyone, like every day we had a different person doing the day's challenge. It was so much fun, and yeah, completely converted some of the team. Well,
yeah, I was going to say, like, were there any people that were not fantasy readers and then really enjoyed it?
Yes. So we actually had a few like complete converts. Suki had never read a fantasy before and really enjoyed it. Wendy had never read a fantasy and is still reading Sarah J. Maas now, like 2 years later. And yeah, a lot of people, we had a few lives throughout as well. So I had a live with Suki as someone who'd never picked up a fantasy book and never been drawn to a fantasy book. I had a live with Naomi about fantasy and publishing and how fantasy doesn't always get like the strongest rep. You know, people look down on fantasy a little bit. It's not the intellectual type, is it? Which, let's be honest, no. And then I also had a live with Shah about someone who used to read fantasy and then hadn't for a long time, so coming back to fantasy. So it was great to see all these different impressions of this book. And again, it's why I always rave about it, because I feel like it is a book that can just appeal to everyone, no matter what genre you're into. So that's the first of the campaigns I loved. The second campaign I really loved was Empire of the Vampire by J. Christoph. So that one was an Australian campaign, and I was really nervous about it because I adore all of the J. Christoph I've read, but I don't like vampires. Honestly, like, it was a 5-star read. I loved it. I can't wait for the sequel. And it was fantastic having a live with Jay. Jay was just one of the loveliest authors I've ever met, because he interacted and he shared with so many of the posts as the campaign was running, which for someone with such a big name and a big following, I was like, that is going above and beyond. I love it. And then the third one that I really, really loved was Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. And I realized that actually Cassandra Clare could also be on my list of authors I own the most books from. I was never going to pick up Chain of Gold. Then I got it for a campaign. And I was like, okay, cool. Fell in love. I've just bought Chain of Thorns. That is this weekend's reading. Like, I am obsessed. And then last year I read all of the Mortal Instruments. I'm still reading all the rest of the Cassandra Clare books. Literally, that campaign made me fall back in love with Cassandra Clare. So it wasn't that like just that campaign had such a personal impact on me that it's a favorite. So yeah, they are my three.
I love that. And I love that each one sort of had a unique aspect that was really cool about that fantasy campaign. So thank you for sharing those. Zuzanna, what fantasy campaigns stand out for you at Tandem?
Okay, so, so a little bit of backstory here. When I was a tiny human, I used to love things like Alexandre Dumas' Three Musketeers, but also his much lesser known series, which is Joseph Balsamo, which is, it's like 2,000 pages around Marie Antoinette and her like fate, with a slight magical element woven in. Fast forward to 2022, enter Tandem into my life, and Naomi asked me what genres I like. So I'm like, okay, fantasy, historical fiction, basically anything, just give me anything. And she's like, okay, there's this book, here you go. And so she assigned me this campaign for The Embroidered Book by Kate Hartfield. This is a historical retelling inspired by Alexandre Dumas' fiction of Marie Antoinette, with like proper historical magic in it, right? And it's also like 700 pages long, which is always like my favorite book length. So I was like, oh my God, it's destiny. So I read this in like 2 days and I was like, okay, I'm so on board with this Tandem thing. And I loved this campaign because despite me imposing this like super frenetic pace, this campaign allowed me to kind of introduce this aspect of history to an Australian readership who kept up with me the whole time. So I loved it. I thought it was amazing. It was my first kind of campaign with the Australian community, and they were amazing. I loved them so much. I love their enthusiasm. I recommend it to you guys as well. I really do. It's beautiful and it's beautifully written. And all of the historical figures, all of the wizards in the book, they're all real people who were suspected of having like magical powers, because at the time, people were very superstitious. So she took all the superstitions at the time, the author, and turned them into real magic. It's gorgeous, and I loved it.
Amazing. And so Tandem brought that aspect of fantasy back into your life.
Yes.
And then you spread it to other read-alongers. Amazing.
That was ever on your radar?
Sorry?
Was that a book that was ever on your radar?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, because this was pre-publication, and it was only at that time it was only being published in Australia. So I mean, if I remember correctly, there was something like that it was only available there for now. And then so it took me, because obviously I had to read the PDF for the campaign, because there was no way they could ship a book from Australia in that short of a time. But then I just bought it for myself as soon as it was available, because it's just amazing and I love it.
I love that.
I'm getting so many good recommendations from this chat, and I will put in the description below all of the books that we've mentioned, so you can check them out yourself. But Julianna, what Tandem fantasy campaigns have you loved?
Oh my gosh. I did a read-along for Bloodmarked by Tracy Dion. We did it in Australia, but it was the weeks. We did it over 10 days because it's quite a fat book. It's a YA fantasy, but it is a sequel to, it's a sequel, but people were so excited about it. We had like a 30% engagement rate because it was all over Bookstagram. While we were doing it, I just felt like it was insane. Like, everybody was talking about it. Everybody was excited. Everybody kept up with the reading over 10 days. Sometimes you lose people, but it was like people were into it. We were all screaming together because there's all these twists and like this crazy thing happened and then this crazy thing happened, and like the author really took the story from the first in like a really different direction, and it's just a phenomenal book too. So it was like really well done and had some like really amazing themes about like racism and power, as well as like this fantasy Arthurian legend retelling. But it was a really fun Australian group and everybody was really into it. We were just all like fangirling over it together, and that was really fun.
Yes.
And then the other one that I really liked was I did it was a TikTok campaign, not a read along, for Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. And I love her. I've read all but one of her books, and I have that one on my shelf that I need to read. Like, I love her. She's a YA fantasy author, but this was her first adult book. And so I read it and just like really enjoyed the experience of being like surprised by this like really atmospheric read. It was very different than her other books. And then because it wasn't a read along, it was a TikTok campaign, I got to like come up with like really, really interesting send out items around it. I would have loved for that to be a read along, but at least I still felt like I got to really craft something that was like unique and special around this book that I really loved, and like was able to share that with the TikTok creators.
Yeah, I mean, I think speaking as also a campaign manager, that's one of the best things about what we get to do at Tandem is make the reading experience for a particular book like really specific to that book and really special for the people that are reading it with us. And also just having that communal reading experience as well. And I think that's also why we get people constantly applying, because yes, like they'll read the book anyway, but between, just reading it by yourself and then having a group that's on this like same pages as you are and being able to like talk to each other about it as you're reading, it's such a fun experience. So if you are not on our newsletter list yet, the link to sign up to our newsletters and hear about all the activities and read-alongs that Tandem is doing is at the bottom of the description in every single one of our videos. So if you're not subscribed to the newsletter, please do. And then you'll get to hear about all of the activities we're doing and get involved. So I have two more quick questions. And the first one is a practical one I'm hoping we can help some people with, which is how do you cure your fantasy book hangovers? For those unfamiliar with what a book hangover is, it's when you are trying to find a book that will make you feel as satisfied as the one that you just finished. Any suggestions for finding new fantasy books?